Okay, we're back again at the 407th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, November 18th, 2021. I believe Mr. Kesh will be ready for taking questions at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, as usual, ready, willing. I don't know if you're able to answer all the questions. Carry on.
Okay, well, we can begin with a question. First of all, let's make sure the attendees can, they should be able to raise their hand. So I'll just remind them they can put up their virtual hands if they wish to ask a question. So in the Q&A from someone called From Zero to Hero, says, Dear Mr. Kesh, thank you so much for sharing with us the knowledge. Could you please advise if we make a GANS of a poisonous element, how shall we use it to receive the antidote effect? How not to harm the body with such GANS? Is there some recommendations on using it? Shall we make 2 patches of it? Then it will move the fields through the body. Still, if these are fields of some toxic element, how can we be sure that it won't harm our body? Could you please advise if we make a GANS of a mushroom which attack the body, could such GANS help our body to become clean of the mushroom? Thank you very much.
There are different ways of approaching this, and the Keshe Foundation has looked at this many times. There is an essence of understanding what a poison is. And in a way, when you take a poison from a living thing like a snake, or you take a poison from what I call a parasite like a mushroom, it's 2 different ways. It's understanding how the energy is absorbed and what energy they absorb. It's not the antidote, it's the knowledge of the fields which they deliver. When we receive a bite from a snake which can kill, why does it travel through the body so fast? What does it affect? How can you stop? How can you reverse? How can you be there to bring a change? We have tested, and many times we have shown that it cannot be treated as you do with viruses because it has an element of amino acid. Your essential structure is to overcome the poison by a process of what we call attachment, but detachment from the amino acid. Many of you work with understanding of the connection with the poisons, with everything else. When you use a poison as what I call interaction with another poison, you never use a CO2, except in some special cases. You make sure there is no connection with amino acid, because you try to separate an amino acid connection with a body which is traveling fast. You try to disconnect from the connection. In these cases, you have to understand what a poison does. A poison in the body, which creates cramp or paralysis or whatever, it changes salt content of the body. You've seen it. When you change the salt, you get different structure of the ganses. You get different energy transfer. When you're facing with poisons in these levels, you use whatever you think is the basis of the poison and salt. But you make sure you do not use the amino acid except in the condition of understanding how the amino acid was created in the conjunction with the process of the creation of that tissue muscle. The poisons always come through by you changing the dilution. You use a high level of salt with whatever could be the component in the patches of like 50 to 1. That you change the solution in the process. The paralysis comes when everything gets stuck together and there is no communication of the nervous system through the salinity, not through the CO2. Poisons are primarily a process where the solidification and interaction happens very fast. And you can use a combination of different salts because poison is a composite material that it goes for everything. And you mix them, have them ready, and just how to use it. The salts you see is those of you who made the ganses always appear on your wire if you leave the gans too long on the container. We use salt in these cases because then you can change the salinity. Salinity does not allow solidification and you wash it out. It's like a cancer you wash out. But for the first time you understand the use of the salts to stop that solidification. In cancer, we never use salt. When you use ganses for cancer, you make sure you wash out. There should be no salt in it because that salt will bring a more, what I call solidification. Then you have to understand the process of what we call packing. In some poisons, you need to pack to unpack. Most of the packing of the tissues with a cancer and that kind of thing, or the cramp, we see it is magnesium. You make sure you have a high ratio, maybe 20 to 1 in magnesium in the patches. And then this allows to punch out any solidification with a, what we call, with a salt and with a poison. Then you have to understand if it's an energy poison like mushrooms. Mushrooms are energy-packed poisons which come from the environment, and that's how they grow. Funguses are the same. They don't connect, but when you see the roots in them, it's just gathering energy, and that is extension. But especially with what we call funguses, they are the same as the viruses, but they have an amino acid connection to the what we call the environment, not to a body. That's why they can grow anywhere. So you never use salt or magnesium in the cancer cases unless in a specific ways for specific cancers. And these are again debatable. In the future, we open more of it. But essentially for poison, you need GAN salts, not salts from the table or whatever else. And even with our research labs, we send them kilos, half a kilos of different GAN salts we hold. We always try to hold GAN salts because it is part of what we call stepping stone for declocking. Once if you go back to the, if you remember the pictures of the breast cancer which opened up. This should not happen. Originally, when we did, it happened. But now we understand we can get rid of the cancer. We can get rid of the tumor itself in the middle, but the housing can stay. And this can only be done when you keep the salinity very tightly controlled in the field interactions. You will not die of the cancer because there is no center for it. But with controlling the salinity, you can keep the case. There's nothing in it. We saw this originally about 12, 15 years ago, but totally did not understand the process. Now we understand the process. And so if you have a poison, you have to understand, you have to stop two things. One is the salinity doesn't change rapidly. Secondly is the solidification doesn't happen rapidly. Then you can walk away from any poison. What materials you use, because it touches the neural system, zinc has to be part of it. Then you have to understand what is the diet of the animal which bites you. What kind of animal it eats, and it can only convert what has as a base to a poison to kill. And then you understand how to make what we call antipoisons. And you need to have things ready. You cannot just jump and do. In the future, I'm sure the Keshe Foundation will deliver different kind of antipoisons through the gas technology. As I said, we are building up the universities, and these are part of the research which will come up very soon. Any other question?
Yes, we have a hand up here from Claudia. Claudia, would you like to go ahead, please?
Hello. Hello, Sir Keshe. It's a pleasure to talk with you. I have a doubt because I was studying your class about the face in school, and you said that the brain's emotion is in the thalamus. But my question is, the soul of the man is in the middle of the thalamus or have another location? Thank you.
Another location.
Sorry about it.
Yeah. It clearly has the position in the brain. You see it in MRI. Doctors never understood, and they just left it as it is. But it's the center. But because it carries such a huge amount of energy, it manifests itself as a dark spot. It's actually the black hole of the brain.
And where is the whole of the brain?
It sits at the center in the back, just about where your neural system starts and the origin of the top of the brain. Top of the, what you call the crown of the brain. I can go to it very easily because I see it in many of my eyes. Randomly, we see it depends how the cut was done, when the scan was done, and you can see in many cases very clearly it's very circular, pin shape, and it doesn't have deviation. It's completely circular.
And don't have liquor inside.
Nothing
it's
inside, just pure. It's not a hole, it's a black hole. You see it as black, but inside is the same as a star. It's full of fields and energies. You see, this is what I was explaining to one of the doctors very, very, very recently. Why do you see a light when you think you're dying? And many people, when they come back to the dimension of physicality, they tell us they've seen the light and it was so peaceful. We have never understood this principle, how we see, and we all of us talk about it. Where does the dimension come from? Where does what? How do we see this white light? If this is your soul, and if this is the collective interaction of the soul of physicality, which is coming through what we call the blood of the man, when you go through the process of death, this closes in. And this is a dynamic, it doesn't stop. This is the emotion of attachment. You already passed it, so you feel detached. This is the emotion of the fear. You're still going in. This is the emotion of loss. You passed it. This is there. The emotion of love is here. So when you're traveling in a two dynamic and you're looking at it with the eye of the soul, what do you see when the earth and the sun interact? Nothing but light. And you say it's peaceful. You say it's calming. There was nothing. Because the soul of physicality nears and passes all this, these don't exist anymore. And then you find out in so many ways the position of. And this is why you see the light. These two create a stronger and a stronger and a stronger light. Here was very faint because detachment came, the other one came, you passed all of it. And now you see the light. And then what happens? Somebody knocks you on the head, wake up. You're not going. You do exactly the reverse. You go backwards and you feel all of it. And then what is left is the emotion of the love and peacefulness which you experience in this region. And when people say, oh, it's so lovely, there was nothing, because now you understand this is your skull and this is the layers of brain. Here could be the pains, here could be the joy, but now you're closing the circle, you pass it out, they don't exist, they are beyond. And those of you who go through this transition of detachment, you come to this point. And then you find a way to go both ways. If all enters all, you're called at the point of death. Dimension of physicality does not come. But if you control it to come to this point, it comes a point of transmutation. Part of the enhancement unit is to do this. And amazingly, very recently, I watched it happen very, very fast within seconds. One of our knowledge seekers knows what I'm talking about, where we cross the circle of emotion very rapidly through the enhancement units. Instantaneously, we touch the heart and the soul till they tune up. This is a process that mankind will come to learn and to teach to himself. Any other question?
Thank you, Sir Kesh.
Thank you very much. We are going to finish around about 11:30. We are traveling today. Any other question?
Just having a look here. don't have a question in the live stream. We have a question in YouTube.
I think we shocked too many people. There is no question.
Yeah, the hands aren't up here. Okay, a couple of questions in YouTube. One from Harnu. Can you ask Mr. Keshe if there are dwellings on the moon to accommodate visitors? And how will space travel affect people on the Earth?
We hear about a lot the moon. The Americans can see them, or the Chinese are hiding there. They work on the black side, the dark side, that nobody can see them. Soon you'll find out when we go to the moon. Bring your cameras.
What is the belief of the Iranian people about the moon and others in the Middle East? What are the beliefs or superstitions or religious beliefs about not going to the moon and that kind of thing? It's why is it seem to be banned or not allowed?
This is a very controversial point. And the problem is not with the scientific minded people, is mainly through the teaching of the religious leaders to those who are what I call not well educated in understanding the work of the universe or whatever. They have a set mind in the Islamic world. The moon is holy. And especially when you go to the Shia sect, because it's believed that Ali, the son-in-law of the Prophet, has cut it with his sword in two halves. That's why we don't see the other half, and they call it Shab al-Qamar. And we see the moon as the sign of Islamic religion because of what it stands for in understanding. All the Islamic nations carry a moon, a crest of moon. And as is considered holy, at the moment is a very big stumbling block or point for the especially radical Islamic nations, because going to the moon is seen as an insult to the religion. I've seen this firsthand, and I've heard and been part of it to feel it firsthand. And now we see with the United Arab Emirates entering into the space game, and Saudis are entering into this game. The question has risen, the Muslim will go everywhere except the moon. And this is what we're trying to change, to bring to understand. And in fact, it'll be part of, you will see what we hear in the background. You'll find man on a mission to Mars from the Islamic nations, but not on missions to Moon. And it's something we cannot change. It's been ingrained in the teachings. We got your picture, Rick, on the live stream. And we cannot change this. And it will stay that way. It will stay till the religious leaders bring in new ways of bringing the people to accept it, bringing people to be part of it, and to understand, as we try to explain there about Solomon and Christ and resurrection, people understand that was philosophically and not physically, and then respect as I said to Islamic leaders, you ban the wearing of the face or drawing the face of His Blessed Muhammad, but you allow people to be attached to the moon and to wait not to worship it, but we have replaced an object with temples which Muhammad tried to get rid of. And with his face not to be drawn, that it becomes like body of a Christ we see on the neck of everything possible around the world nowadays. And it is a hard work to what we call the Muslims, especially certain sects, to accept the travel of man to the moon. You can go anywhere, but not the moon. But that stays in that level until the religious leaders explain. And themselves are uneducated, most of them, so how do you expect others to do? We have a struggle there, but in general, as I said, you don't go to certain places. We have no flights from, let's say, Saudi to the moon. But from America, if you're a Muslim, you can go if you want. So we'll see these things gradually dying off and disappear as people become what we call neutral to the fact and understanding. It's very strange how we see the change of culture in the Islamic world, especially those who come as refugees. Everything has to be halal. Or in their country, they don't ask if it's halal or not. But as they travel, they walk for days and weeks, and they have to eat anything to survive. We see a lot of Muslims from refugee status countries who had to go through this. They don't care if it's pork, pig, or lamb, or cow. If it's slaughtered the Islamic way, the Jewish way, or the European way. Because the hunger and to stay alive has overtaken what we call dogmas of the religion. We see this a lot amongst the refugees. Because you cannot afford anything. It's what's on the table has to be eaten. Maybe after they settle down, they try to go back to it, but most of them, as they have tasted everything, they say it doesn't matter what it is. We don't see many religious people for those who become refugees, because they lose on the way to survive. And maybe the moon story will be another part of the same thing in the coming time. Any other question?
Thank you, Mr. Kesh. I have a question from Cristiano here in the chat. He says, from Brazil. The question is from Alexandra through Cristiano in the chat. Says, Mr. Kesh, I confess that specifically some of your phrases touch my soul and my deepest emotions. Two questions. One, will Mithra manifest itself again on Earth? And
yes.
The second.
Without a doubt. That's a promise. And it's kept. Without a shadow of a doubt. Much sooner than you can ever imagine. Second question.
I know you've talked about that in several other workshops recently as well. Second question is, when will we have a university in Brazil?
University is planned. We have started discussion with the Iranian government officials. University in Austria we are looking for a site, and we have a site. In Beijing, we have asked the Keshe Foundation, and we have spoken to National Security Officer responsible for Keshe Foundation and CBC in the past 48 hours to facilitate the establishment of the university in Beijing. We have spoken with our people in Arizona, and Arizona is the next place for education as an institute. Our target is the nation of Nigeria, and we are hoping that Alex will head it. And Brazil is a place, a time, a position that we consider. We had the option of 5 universities initially. Each university or institute to set up cost the Keshe Foundation and the structure of its work 500 million euro to run for 5 years. When you look at 5 cities, universities, you're talking around about 2.5 billion. And the program for Austria is 100% set. Iran is set to go. We have to finish documentations and the rest of it. Beijing is the same. And Arizona, I have given that promise to John, 100% is one of the first ones to open up. But our limitations are very, very tight, as we cannot open, we won't open university as a lecture teaching. Keshe Foundation Institute research centers become the norm. In a way, you come up with an idea. If a panel which is put up can accept the idea, you set up your own research team. It's your job to complete. You're given a budget and certain time. And when you finish, you move out. In our institutes, we don't give you certificate, as you know, many of you. But you move out, you keep a space for the next research to come in. And Austria has been said to accept 300 researchers in the first year. The third year, we estimate 500, and by the 5th year, we have envisaged in our accounting book to 1,000 researchers. And estimated cost is around about 50 to 100 million euro per year. We are not on the wedge. Austria is 100% been put in. We're just one of the reasons I'm traveling today is to see another site for the second part of the university. And Iran is in the hand of our team in Tehran. We've spoken to the officials. They know the Keshe Foundation directly will invest 500 million euro in Tehran, in Iran, for the Middle East and not just the Iranian side. And our Chinese team can tell you we have already spoken to the Chinese officials for the start of the setting of the university. The institute is research, not teaching you how to make ganses and whatever, unless something comes up, and our structure is set that way. Any other questions?
Yes, I see Azar has a hand up here. Could you go ahead?
Good morning, Mr. Keshe. I have a question. When you talk about Solomon, actually the other day I was thinking about there are so many races in the past of human history. Like one of them, there were many of them. One of them was Chauvin before Incas. And they had temples, and until like 30, 40 years ago, you could go even to the temple, and it wasn't taken by the government to become you go as a visitor. And some of the artifacts you could actually go digging, and some people went in and took them, and some people even have them, and they use them in the ceremonial table. But the question is, these people in the temple, people from all around the land, from everywhere, they used to come into the temple, and they had a ceremonial. It was like connected the soul. Actually, they became one, and these were very magnificent being. And then, if you go to some of the artifacts in the National Museum of Archaeology in Lima, there's a statue of the head which is have like a protrusion above the head. Actually, if you get a guide, they really don't know the real meaning behind it. They think it's a hairdo, which is not a hairdo. It was a consciousness. It's a symbol of consciousness. And actually, they have a stone. It's called Stella Ramondi. There's a lot of outline and then graph on the stone. And if you go early in the morning to the museum and it's not crowded, stand a meter away from it, you can feel the huge amount of energy comes through it. And actually, the guy who found it was an Italian guy. His name was Stella Ramondi. But these people, they used to do these things together. I mean, it actually covered a huge part of the Andes land. But then all these people disappeared in one go. Suddenly they just wiped out from the face of the earth. And this is not the first time this happened. It happened in places in Colombia, in other places. But who are these people and why they disappear suddenly when they were so consciously so above us? I mean, we are more physical than them, and they were way in the past. Why that happened? I mean, what is the reason?
Do you want me to be very direct? Well, I'm fine, I'm an ask them. But indirectly is some of the things that you say people disappeared. Now we understand how Incas had to move, and now they didn't disappear because of the what we call geology and geometry of the place and the position and the weather. They had to move and gradually abandon, and the cities left behind. We see this normally. But when it comes to the South America, we glorify it. We have many abandoned cities over the centuries where water has gone and there is no reason to stay. Without the water, you cannot stay. We see that even in some cities in Asia. But when it comes to the South America, we glorify they disappeared. Now, many of now with the science we have and the geology test done, we see the rods. We see lack of water.
Mr. Keshe, like for example, in Colombia, the sign of infinity loop and the plasma sign is all over the place.
Yes, but the knowledge doesn't mean that when you have the knowledge, you've done whatever. And some of it is there is a knowledge we want to keep away from mankind for the time being. Because man is not ready for such a thing. But some of the races of the man went through the non-physical detachment, which means they found the way that many races in the space found to travel, found to move, found to sustain life. And this was the pattern even in Africa. So it's not that all the human race went the way you see it, to carry the cars and the rest. There are races that elevated like the rest of through their isolation and the approach and understanding of the creation, or one understood and the rest followed. They've gone the path of maturing to understand the interaction and motion and life in a space without what we see as a rocket. You've been to the exhibition center in Linz, you've seen it. On the ceiling, we have 6 huge, like the end of the rocket engines going up, and they're sticking out. Actually looks like the end of the one of the shuttle when they take off and all the fire comes out. And I use it as a joke. That's the old technology. The technology is taken off and it's going away. And what you've seen with the new technology underneath of it. And this is what is. Not all men went through the same process of understanding. But in South America, we see the even drawings of UFOs in the caves of in France. We see talking or drawing things from thousands of centuries ago. Some are enlightened, some they found a way to survive to whatever reason, and mankind has not always been what you see today.
And Mr. Keshe, why do we want to keep some of the knowledge from the man? What's the reason for it?
Man is not ready. Man is not ready.
Thank you.
There was a question in the YouTube about restriction of information as well, in terms of Ezra asks a question for the respected and beloved brother Keshe. Why are world governments being shady about the Antarctic? No one is allowed to go there, and only deep Illuminatis.
I don't know about that. Antarctic is a huge natural resources. And their fight is not going there. It's not going there to claim it, then they have to get it back. It's a very. We had some officials with us yesterday in the Linz exhibition center, and I explained something very simple. If you look at the material enhancement unit, when we show it to the Americans, as we don't need the centrifuge, we can centrifuge anything we like now, 100% plutonium, uranium, whatever. That's the dilemma of the American. But now sit in the shoe of the Chinese in the negotiation. That machine is the end to control of the edge of science technology development, because Chinese over 20, 30 years, especially past 30 years, have bought and secured most of the rare earth material resources, which are keeping the West hanging on it. Now Americans get to understand, and we give them the key. The machine is there. I'm sure they paid a lot of visit to it while we were locked down in, what do you call it, design center. The Austrian government must have given access to the Americans and the rest to do whatever they like to see it. That gives the freedom of anything they like. They don't. The Chinese will lose the control on rare earth material with that machine. And how do we balance this off? And then, do we need to produce any more materials and call them rare earth? Because you can produce whatever you like, even the space materials. Man never had his hands on it in different properties. It's a game. that Keshe Foundation is sitting on the center, and we see both. Depends who wants what they want and what purpose it'll serve. I hope I answered you in a very indirect way, but very clear way. The knowledge now has become a new strand. Many nations in what they did not want to do and what they want to do, and now they don't have the freedom, and now they have a totality of they can do what they like. The stranglehold on car industry to even chip manufacturing, if I'm sure most of you know, all of you know, is through all these rare earth materials and other conditions behind it, which now is controlling the European economy. All the top cars you hear, Mercedes, BMW, Volkswagen, Rolls-Royce, all the car manufacturers in Europe have a problem of the shortage of chip. They encourage them to go into chip technology, advanced technology, electronics. Now they cannot get chips. Most of the factories in Europe are on a part-time run, slow run. And this is said to affect the economy of the Europe deliberately. The whole structure controlling rare earth or rare materials now has given a power game, which is damaging the European car industry beyond imagination. If you order a Mercedes now, 2023, and depends if they can have the chips to do it, is the delivery time. And this touches the economy of the nations like Germany, which major part of his income is motor industry. There's a shortage of chips for military hardware, the same. And it's in a way strangleholds on many nations. I said very recently, those of you who've been in some of the meetings, we used to have the gun policy and war policy to control and bring nations down like the Second World War and the rest. Now we have this new, what I call energy plasma control, which is actually eating into the central bank of every nation in the world. And that's why, if you understood it, we took the love of God from the Rothschild family for the suffering they brought to many people, to greed of the money. And wealth has to be used to bring joy, not to bring suffering. And you will understand very soon how, in what I call single war by one single family on the whole of humanity, they thought they won, but they didn't know that they were standing and getting judged, and they have lost the case. This kind of wealth and knowledge should have been used to elevate the soul of man and the what about the education of that. And when used the wrong way, control brings a lot, and we take the control not to exist. Any other questions?
Okay, no more questions from the attendees here. There's a couple of questions in the Q&A. Are there plans for a university in Canada at
Nope.
the site where the enhancement units are going to be placed?
No. No. We setting these things up, it takes us about 5 years. It's not so easy tomorrow. And as I said to the Chinese and to the Iranians and to our site, which is here in Austria, one of the first groups we bring in is all the professors and doctors and God knows specialists who are around Keshe Foundation to come and work from the Keshe Foundation centers. The two reasons for this is because we have a lot of professors and top educated in universities who would like to do tests for the products or with the things of the Keshe Foundation in the universities to give it credibility. We set up the institute that the credibility comes to the institute with the people who want to do it. And this is very easy for us to bring 300-400 professors, scientists, and doctors and put them in one room and say, okay, you wanted to do it for your university, this is your university, do it. And the funds are here. And this is what we're planning to do. And it's not so easy. I know there'll be a lot of discussions for it, but we are ready for it. We are prepared, but it's not so easy. And especially organizing everything for it will be much harder in the time to come. But I'm sure our, what we call knowledge seekers, will bring an end to this when more and more education centers can be built up.
Okay, couple more questions in the YouTube one from Richard Eagle. Can the population of the earth be conceptualized as a great wave that has reached the shore and is now receding, returning to source, next to flow to all shores with our love?
Translation.
Well, I'm not sure how to translate that. That's his impression of what is going on the planet, I guess. So we just let that stand as it is, I guess. We have a question here about someone that has a device, an implant, a titanium implant at the hip, and wondering if that, if they can use the body enhancement units if they have a hip implant. You've talked about this before, I believe, actually several times.
Yes, we advise not to, but we have had a case in China that we tested with a titanium plate on the back of the head due to an accident or whatever it was. And we don't see, if it's done in a specific way, we don't see interference. But the biggest problem is with the previous works we did, because we used to make localized system, that part of the body used to come into operation. We advise always the ones, especially with the joints, with the hip joints and things, not to use, because if the bones start growing or moving, the hip will get damaged, or with the knee, which is with titanium. But essentially, we can isolate it in a specific way. In some cases, yes, it can be used, but primarily we advise not.
Okay, thank you. Ezra says thank you for the answer his question, and he wonders one thing: was Thoth a messenger of the universe? Thoth, the like one of the gods of Egypt.
Yeah, what about it?
Was he a messenger of the universe?
What did he bring with us? Most of the structure is localized. Any other
Question in the chat. I know you have to go soon here, Mr. Kesh. From Luana. What is Mitra? If you can answer, I will be
Can you-
grateful.
We lost you.
She says,
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
what is Mitra? If you can answer, I will be grateful.
Mitra is the essence of the love of the Creator. In Old Testament, name has been changed to Eve. Had no physicality, but it's the essence of emotion of giving, loving, and receiving the same. But in a dimension that is a physical dimension. If you call the Creator the soul, Mitra is the soul of physicality. And the creation is his physical dimension.
Danila in the YouTube would like to know if you can advise about whether the Magrav power unit is applicable in houses with aluminum circuits.
It's applicable anywhere. Keshe Foundation Iran will soon put up a new style of Magravs. This is what we call, this is in production, and it's very different than the other Magravs you had. And this is after what we call, you can use it in any shape or form for any material. If you understand the work of the Magrav, the true work of the Magrav, if you put a Magrav next to a tree, the tree will light up. And the light is from the interaction of the fields of the Magrav with what we call aura of the tree, the fields which come from the tree, nothing else. As you know, the sap is dynamic within the plant, and like the blood circulation of the man. And it'll be safe. If you get your work of your Magravs very correct, and you made the Magrav not just by the way we see it today, when you put a Magrav and you walk over it or become near to it, you will see the light from it. And these kind of systems is actually in the pattern. Go in the pattern, you can do it. And if you're taking the step further, you only need the light for the vision. You don't need the light for what is the object, unless you want to see it or is under line of vision. When you go into houses now, they're very proud. We have underfloor heating, or we have a special heating, blah, blah. I'm sure, I just don't have the time to do it. You will see new heating systems that water in a plant pot in the winter will keep at 4 degrees. You walk into the room which is frozen, everything, your body still feels good and no cold. And this process of the new heating system doesn't need that much energy. Anything which is in motion will create its heat absorption and the dimension which needs to. We can leave the fish tank in the middle of the ice buckets and the fish will still live if we can provide the right, what we call maglev system to it. The heat warms itself and the water keeps that water floating that the fish can survive. Because it's dynamic. With the floating of the fish, the water interacts and responds. Any other question?
One thing I'd like to show is your publication of an article in a journal.
Oh, the one in the Greece?
Yes, it happens
I've
to be
seen it.
a Greek tourism journal, but it's interesting. It's that they, you can see the cover of the journal here. It's apparently quite a popular tourism journal in Greece, probably the main one, I think. And on page 60 here, we'll see there's a lovely article showing the Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit. And it's like I think it's actually a 3-page article, and it has actually been translated into English as well. I'll just briefly show that here. And so the title of the article was Space Plasma Nanotechnology is Already Here. This enhancement space unit was introduced to the European public in a glorious ceremony that took place at the Keshe Foundation Space Research Center in Linz, Austria. And there's 3 pages to the article with the pictures of the original article. So there's an English translation that's available. We'll post that in the social media places so people can read it. It's a very nice article, quite positive. So really good to see, Mr. Keshe.
Oh, they let us be published. This is one of the first times since 2013-12.
Oh, okay.
It's unusual to see it. There's a ban on Keshe Foundation to be any newspaper or magazine or any TV or radio. There's a very tight ban in Europe, especially. It's done by the request of the demented King of Belgium. And as he supplies life to them, the oldest, we used to be published on a frequent basis around the world till 2012-13. When what happened, we received the invitation and the rest. We look at the positive things which comes from the technology, and we are growing so fast in so many ways that the past become irrelevant, because where we are now is because of how we survived it and how we went through it is essentially more important. And in the coming time, we have to understand the process of the evolution of the technology and the science, and with it understand what new things is to come, what new things can we provide, and what new things can we create to bring prosperity to mankind. And publications and these things help to bring more attention to the technology. We thank those who were behind this and published it. Any other question? Shall we call it a day? I think today's teaching was very nice for those who understood what is about to come, and nice for those who already been enlightened and get the confirmation. If you don't have any more questions, we are in the process of opening or setting up the opening of the Austrian Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute as an institute. And it's not going to be easy. When we are ready, for those who we would like to participate, we don't want teachers in the institute. We want researchers. The institute has to become a center for research, and in the next few weeks, we appoint a panel of knowledge seekers with open-mindedness that what researchers they see or they would like to be seen to be done, and the institute will provide the facilities and the finances for it. And this is how it will be done. We are not we open a research institute and not an institute to come and sit in classes. Even though there will be some classes because it's part of the structure, but we will be more on research and the topic of the research, and all of it will be decided by the knowledge seekers. Any other question?
Maybe one more question, Mr. Keshe. Salamia had asked, consists the role for the enhancement units for the peace talks on 28th of November? Is there a position for the units?
We will let you know. We will let you know. We will let you know as it comes, because there are a number of things at the moment very delicate with the Keshe Foundation. One primarily is the peace talks. We are in the background. We advise what needs to be and what we see, and it depends on the government officials how they apply it. And then the other thing is what we call the situation with the market. We are a majority shareholder, or we are a controlling shareholder, and that is to be done, that the knowledge can be opened up in what we call American continent. And thirdly is the establishment of the one city, one center, which we have a started allocation of 1,000 centers around the world, which primarily is how we see it, and that it needs to spread the knowledge. There are a number of people who approach the Keshe Foundation. Can we still buy enhancement unit? Yes, you can still join us in centers, or you come up with the finance of machinery, we build the centers. But essentially, we are taking a direction of owning the knowledge, developing the knowledge, manufacturing the knowledge, selling the knowledge, and at the same time now to be at the end user of the knowledge too, which means we produce in our factory, we add new knowledge to it, and we deliver it to our own centers at the end for the use by public. It's a beautiful position to be in. We don't need to wait. We waited 2 years for knowledge seekers and others to see what enhancement units. Now we are organizing that. We can open on about so many centers as a total enhancement centers around the world. And so in a way, for me, it's not the first time I've done this. This experience I had from my business past, to do everything from the choice of the many retailers now do everything to the manufacturing end, but scientifically, we are in that position now to do. And we announce, we go to Universal Council, we advise which cities they give us a priority of cities they consider to be, and we try partially through that and partially through political, economical situations we see to build the centers in the cities around the world. And this is part of our work, hopefully we'll succeed. But we have facilitated for about 1,000 centers around the world. But if you want to be, because in the past few days since we opened an exhibition center, a number of people have approached us. Can we still be part of it? Yes. Individually or as collectively and the rest of it. Any other question?
Well, I think we should let you go here, Mr. Kesh, but we
Thank you very
could
much.
keep going quite easily. There's a couple more questions. We can
That's a couple
have
of
them.
more questions and then we go.
Okay. Salamia has a hand up here. She has something else to ask, I guess. You want to go ahead? Salamia?
Yes. Hello, Mr. Kesh. Hello, everybody. I'd like kindly to ask you, what is this light of Magrav and this light, what we see inside the unit? This is a light of our own soul of man, or this is a light
What
of
are you talking about?
Kardai?
Can you explain what light do you see in the Magrav?
You said before that the Magrav from Iran is different from other Magravs. It's like the light of vision. And
I think you, no.
no.
The Magravs in Iran are different because they are constructed different for application. And then the other part is the Magravs create fields, which these fields in interaction with the body of the man, if they're the right strength of the interaction, you create from the dynamic aura of the man and the fields of the Magrav light. That's not in the Magrav. In the interaction, because of the right strength that they can interact, you will see the light. There are millions of different spectrums of lights which goes across the solar system, and they interact with this with the Earth's gravitational magnetic field, but they never create light. It's the same. The unit fields has to be at the strength that it can interact with the field of. And these units to build are very easy. I suggest to Jalal's secret group of making Magravs, try it.
Thank you very much. So
Thank
this
you very
is
much.
plasma light.
You might call it, yes, but you have to find the right strength to interact with the plasma.
Yes. So this
Thank
is
you
a
very much.
secret. Thank you very much.
It's not a secret, it's just a knowledge you have to gain.
Ah, you said secret group. Yes.
Oh, no. Jalal has a secret group developing Magravs in a very secret way. It was for him. Thank you. It's a secret that everybody knows.
Polichinelle secret, yes. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shall we call it a day, Rick?
Okay, maybe one more quick question. I'll try to
Yeah.
squeeze out of you, Mr. Kesh. From Dan in the Q&A here, who asks, how do you see the connection between the digital wallet where everyone is monitored for COVID and the mobile phone, China, about the distribution of everything you need through phones?
It's a cycle of evolution we have to see. It's something we learn. Why do they control you, your COVID through your wallet? Or these are the things governments try and they see how they can do. You'll find that a lot of it will pressurize and then it will drop off. Or it's a new way of control of monetary system or whatever. But it's where to come. This is nothing to do with COVID. It's something which was said 10, 20 years ago. You don't work, you have no money, then you are a slave, or that's it, you're terminated. Communists used to, in Russian time, if you were in position that it was a burden on the society, they eliminated you. It was well known in communist time. And so now we see, what do you call it? We see different ways of control. Strange enough, a lot of people who are dying in the past recent weeks that are all over 65. This is the time when there is no paying in, and now it's time to pay out, and we spend the money years ago. Now, if you're not there, we don't need to pay you, if you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And it seems the process has started in a very big way around the world. Any other question, or shall we call it a day because we have to move?
Yeah, I know you
Thank
have
you
to
very
go.
much.
Thank you. I'll just say there's a comment from Zero to Hero. Dear Mr. Kesh, I'd like to thank you so much for your reply today. I also managed to take away seasonal herpes in the nose with the Cup of Life 1 easily and fast. Thank you so much. So just a comment there.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Kesh. Thank
you. We'll see you next week.
Okay, thank you so much for another Knowledge Seekers workshop here. This has been the 407th Knowledge Seekers workshop on Thursday, November 18th, 2021. We have the One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace coming up on, just let me see the date. That'll be Tuesday, November 23rd at the 4 p.m. Central European Time. And thank you everybody for attending today, and we'll see you next time around. I'll play a couple of the videos from the universal units to go out on here. Bye for now.